Hello, this is Virgil, Labrador, Editor-in-Chief of Satellite Markets and Research, and we're here at the AVIA Satellite Industry Forum 2019 in Singapore with Louis Boswell. He's the CEO of AVIA, which is the organizer of this conference. And if you're wondering why it's called AVIA, it's actually formerly called CASBA. And I've been attending CASBA, the Satellite Summit, for over 20 years, since when I was here in Singapore. And they rebranded last year to AVIA, the Asian Video Industry Association. Right. So talk about that, Louis. Let's start with that.
So yes, look, I mean, CASBA started off in the early 90s as the Cable and Satellite Broadcasting Association of Asia. It was very much the pay TV association. And that hasn't really changed very much, but the industry has developed, and we wanted to just look for a name that encompassed the broader confines of the industry, because we're living in a world where people are now watching video on their smart devices, on their tablets, on their iPhones, on their TV, but on demand on TV as well as linear. So the industry is changing and developing. It's not purely cable and satellite delivered today. But we wanted to come up with a name that's really focused on who we are, and the Asia Video Industry Association, I think, is the best encompassing of who we are and all of the parts of the ecosystem that make that up.
Right. Louis, I have to ask, since we are a satellite publication, you dropped the name satellite. It used to be Cable and Satellite and Broadcasting Association. So what do you think of the satellite sector in the Asia Pacific?
Okay, well, technically, we didn't drop satellite, because actually they made a change a number of years ago, well before my time, when the Cable and Satellite Broadcast Association of Asia actually just changed their name to CASBA.
Oh, right.
And so they said CASBA no longer stands for Cable and Satellite Broadcasting Association, it's just a name.
Right.
And so really taking AVIA is just the next iteration of that. But in no shape or form are we downplaying satellite's role within our industry.
Right.
Satellite still plays a crucial role within video. We wouldn't be in business today around Asia if it wasn't for satellite. And so the name, it was AVIA, the Asia Video Industry Association, was really just trying to encompass all parts of the industry. We're not talking about producers specifically, we're not talking about distributors specifically, we're not talking about cable or satellite specifically, we're talking about the entire industry. And satellite is as much a part of that today as it ever has been.
And you're still optimistic of satellite's role in the future ecosystem?
Well, as I said, it still plays an indispensable role today. It's a role that is being challenged, I have to say, but the entire industry is being challenged. As consumer habits change, as content becomes more on demand, then I mean that creates monetization pressures throughout the entire industry. So it doesn't really matter whether, if you're a traditional channel broadcaster, you're trying to sort of figure out how to make your content work in an on-demand space. If you're a paid television platform, you're trying to work out, is it skinny bundles? Are they the solution? Is it bundling with broadband? Is that the solution? And I think satellite's in exactly the same space, which is, what is the role that it plays in video, and how does it continue to grow and develop that role? And I think it's still, as I said, it does play an indispensable role. It is one that's under pressure. But I think there's huge room for growth and for re-engineering of satellite. Satellite's not going to go away anytime soon. Just like linear broadcast is not going to go away anytime soon. And I think particularly when you look at these parts of the world, as you look at the Philippines, as you look at Indonesia, I mean, you can't carry services in those countries if it's not for satellite. It has to be satellite. Given the geographical archipelagos that those countries are.
But with this rebranding, does this kind of open up the organization to other sectors and segments of the video industry?
I think yes, I think it does make it more explicit that we're talking about the broader video industry. So we've had companies like Netflix join the industry over the last 12 months. Whereas when it was seen as a more linear television
Right.
based association, I think they would have been unwilling to do that. But I mean, today we all coexist. It doesn't matter whether you're Fox, that's now part of Disney, which has strong linear products.
Right.
We all know that they're going to be launching Disney Plus later this year.
Right.
Everyone is looking at both on-demand and linear services. So to me, having an association that's only representing the linear services and not what's happening on demand didn't make sense.
Right. Now, I would imagine that advocacy is a very important part of your role as an industry association. So what are your regulatory priorities?
I think there are two key regulatory priorities that we're very focused on at the moment. One is satellite focused, and so there is this whole question about spectrum allocation, not just in Asia, but it's going on all around the world.
Right.
And we're seeing different answers and different solutions coming up in different markets.
Right.
But with the advent of 5G, it is putting pressure on existing spectrum.
Right.
And we are not anti-5G in any shape or form.
Right.
I mean, we think 5G is we're pro-innovation, we're pro-technology development,
Right.
and I think 5G will be critical for video delivery moving forward. So we want to support the advent of 5G, but we obviously want that to happen in a responsible way.
Right.
And we want existing stakeholders and their contracts and their rights to be protected. And we want to make sure that we don't move to a world where suddenly everyone's just talking about, oh, it's 5G, 5G, 5G,
Right.
and the wheels fall off existing C-band capacity and extended C-band capacity that is being used for broadcast around the region.
Right.
So it's very important that we are the voice of the industry and we work with governments and regulators so we can manage that process responsibly and hopefully affect an outcome that meets everyone's objectives. We want to protect existing broadcast services, and yet we know that there has to be room to be found for 5G to develop.
Right.
So we're at the forefront of advocating a responsible way of managing that migration.
What about markets? The Asia-Pacific region is not one single market, right? There are a lot of close markets.
Yes. So this is very much a country-by-country issue, as it is in advocacy in everything that we do.
Right.
We are an Asian-based association, but we look at Singapore differently to the way we look at Malaysia, to the Philippines, to Japan, to Korea, to India, and down to Australasia. So no, it's very much a market-by-market advocacy policy that we need to roll out.
Right. Well, finally, Louis, what else can we expect from AVIA in the next few years?
Well, look, I think, as we often talk about, we're in a very exciting stage of our industry. Exciting also means challenging.
Right.
Because change doesn't come without challenge.
Right.
But I think that the big questions that we have underlying the video industry today in Asia is ultimately what are going to be the business models that win. How do you move from what was a very successful, very profitable pay TV linear business model, and how do you manage the plateauing and potentially the decline of that, and the advent of on-demand video and streaming services, which today are a much lower margin business,
right.
Need a lot of investment.
Right.
I think there are big questions around whether they are going to be subscription supported or increasingly advertising supported in a lot of markets in this part of the world. And so look, I think from AVIA's point of view, we're going to be at the heart of those conversations. We're working with the broader industry to try and make a stronger industry for everybody. And I think we all need to learn from each other.
Right.
We need to see what works. We need to educate each other, because this isn't about one company becoming massively successful. This is about sort of bringing the whole industry together. And as I said, I mean, satellite continues to play a crucial role in that, and we're absolutely committed to working with all of the satellite companies to manage and see how they can get growth from video businesses across Asia today.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Louis. That was a pretty good overview. And this show, which I've been attending this conference for the last 20 years now, it's now a new name. Actually, the other event that's held here in Singapore. Communication has also rebranded. It's now called ConnectTech Asia. So it really shows how change is happening so fast in our industry. So it's always important to keep up with all these trends. And for all those trends and opportunities, you can always look at satellite markets and research at www.satellitemarkets.com.